Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner Stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I found a dark web forum where serial killers brag about their crimes. One of them described my childhood nightmare in perfect detail. Alright, so before I get into this, let me just say, I'm not some hacker genius. I'm not a secret agent, and I definitely wasn't looking for trouble. I was just a bored 22-year-old college dropout with way too much free time. You ever fall into those YouTube rabbit holes at 3 a.m.? One video about disturbing unsolved mysteries leads to 10 real-life horror stories caught on camera, and before you know it, you're watching some guy explain how to access the dark web like it's a tutorial on how to cook ramen. That's where this all started. I wasn't even planning on doing anything crazy. I just wanted to see if all the hype was real. You hear all these stories about black market, organ sales, hitmen, and human experiments, but half of that has to be fake, right? It's like a modern urban legend. So, I followed the steps, downloaded Tor, set up a VPN, kept my webcam covered like some paranoid conspiracy theorist, and at first, it was underwhelming. Most of the sites were either scams, dead links, or the same sketchy drug markets you hear about on the news. Nothing that screamed forbidden knowledge or government secrets. Then, I found something weird. I was scrolling through a directory when I saw a forum with a simple title, The Playground. No description, no flashy graphics, just a plain black screen with a login prompt. At first, I figured it was just another forum for wannabe edgelords talking about horror movies or conspiracy theories. But when I clicked sign up, it asked for a referral code. I obviously didn't have one, so I tried some random guesses. Nothing worked. I was about to give up when a new message popped up on the screen. You seem interested. Want in? I froze. I didn't type anything. I didn't press any buttons, but the message was there, like someone was watching me. Before I could even react, another message appeared. Check your email. At this point, my heart was racing. I had no idea how they got my email, but sure enough, when I checked, there it was. A new message with the subject line, Welcome to the Playground. I almost closed my laptop, right then and there. I knew this was a bad idea, but curiosity is a hell of a drug. Inside the email was a single link. I clicked it. The site loaded instantly. Black background, red text, no usernames, no avatars, just post after post of people describing, in horrifying detail, their work. And by work, I mean murder. This wasn't some fictional roleplay. These weren't campfire ghost stories. These were real people, real serial killers, and they were bragging. I should have left. I should have closed my laptop, deleted everything, and pretended I never saw any of it. But then, I saw a post that made my stomach drop. The title, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. It described a murder, a very specific one. A man detailed how, 15 years ago, he broke into a house in a small suburban neighborhood and took a child from his bed. A child in striped pajamas. A child who screamed so loud that the man had to press a pillow over his face to keep the neighbors from hearing. A child who was me. Or at least, I thought it was. Because the thing is, I wasn't murdered. I was kidnapped, and I was found alive. So how the hell was a man describing my exact childhood nightmare in perfect detail? Unless I had almost been a victim, unless I had barely escaped, and unless, somewhere out there, he was still watching me. I sat there staring at the screen, my body completely frozen. My brain kept trying to convince me it was fake. Some elaborate horror ARG, a messed up Reddit roleplay, maybe even an undercover sting operation trying to lure in sickos. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was real. I could feel it in the way the posts were written. They weren't exaggerated or theatrical. They were methodical, precise. These people weren't telling stories. They were documenting, and they had rules. Right under the forum's name, there was a single pinned post. Welcome to the playground. I clicked on it. It wasn't long, just a list of rules, typed out in that same blood-red font on the black background. Rules of the playground. No personal information. Names, locations, faces. Keep it clean. No false claims. If you didn't do it, don't post it. No outside discussion. What happens in the playground stays in the playground. Respect your peers. No insults, no threats. We are professionals. No law enforcement. You know why. I read it over again, my hand starting to shake. No false claims. They weren't pretending. They weren't trying to scare people. They were sharing. I clicked back to the main page and forced myself to look at the posts again. Each one was like an entry in some twisted diary. Trial and error. Why knives are messier than you think. I took a bus ride with a missing person. He didn't know he was missing. How to make someone disappear without a trace. Every word was clinical, calculated. They talked about their kills the way a chef talks about cooking. Details about tools, techniques, mistakes, improvements. But the worst part, there were comments, people discussing, sharing advice, like a goddamn support group for serial killers. I don't know how long I sat there, scrolling through post after post, feeling like I was going to throw up. My curiosity had turned into something else now. Fear. Then I found another post, one that made my stomach drop. The boy in the striped pajamas. I hesitated before clicking. I already knew what I was about to see, but I had to know. The post was written in short, cold sentences. It was summer, 15 years ago, a small, quiet town. Middle of the night, parents asleep, window unlocked. He woke up, started screaming. Had to smother him, almost too much, almost ruined it. Took him outside, car was waiting, drive was quiet. He never stopped crying, not until the woods. Buried what was left. I could barely breathe. This wasn't just close to my childhood trauma. This was a perfect match. The striped pajamas, the screaming, the car, the woods. But here's the thing. I wasn't murdered. I was found. A jogger discovered me early the next morning, alone, half conscious, in a ditch on the side of the road. I don't remember what happened after I was taken. I was too young, but my parents told me I was lucky. Lucky. That word made me want to throw up now. Because if this was real, if this was the same guy, then what the hell was he talking about? Buried what was left. What the hell did that mean? I scrolled down, praying, begging, for no comments. Maybe this was just some troll, right? Some asshole who knew my story and was trying to mess with me. But there was one reply. One short, simple comment, posted by someone with no name, no profile picture. It just said, "You don't remember, do you?" And right at that moment, My screen flickered, and my phone vibrated. A new email. No subject, no sender, just one line of text. Check your front door. I didn't want to look. Every instinct in my body told me to close my laptop, throw my phone across the room, and pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't, because this wasn't just some internet horror story. This was my real life, and someone, somewhere, was watching me. I forced myself to stand up, my legs shaking as I made my way to the front door. The apartment was dead silent. No cars outside, no neighbors, just the faint hum of my fridge and my own ragged breathing. I reached the door, paused, and looked through the peephole. Nothing, just the empty, dimly lit hallway of my shitty apartment complex. But when I cracked the door open, my stomach dropped. A small black USB drive sat on my welcome mat. No note, no package, just the drive, sitting there like a goddamn time bomb. I stepped back, my mind racing. This had to be some kind of threat, right? Some sick way of telling me that they knew where I lived, that they could get to me whenever they wanted. But if that was the case, why leave a USB? Why not just come inside? I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hands slick with sweat. Then, against all better judgment, I grabbed my old burner laptop, the one I used for sketchy downloads and free trials, and plugged the USB in. There was only one file, a video. No title, no timestamp, just a standard MP4 file sitting there in the empty folder. I clicked it. The screen went black for a moment. Then, a grainy, low-quality video started playing, and within 5 seconds, I knew I had made a mistake. It was night. The camera was shaky, like it was being held by someone walking. The quality was shit, pixelated, blurry, but I could still make out trees, a forest. Someone was breathing heavily behind the camera, slow, deliberate breaths, like they were excited. Then the camera turned, and I saw him, a little boy, wearing striped pajamas. He was lying in the dirt, curled up in the fetal position. His face was hidden, but his small frame was shaking violently, his hands clenching and unclenching in the loose soil. I felt like I was going to throw up. Even though the quality was bad, even though the details were blurry, I knew that was me. I was watching myself. The boy. I let out a weak, broken sob. He tried to move, his tiny fingers clawing at the dirt, but he was too weak. And the person behind the camera, they just stood there, watching, breathing. The video cut out for a second, static flashing across the screen. Then, suddenly, a new shot. A hole. A shallow grave, already dug out in the dirt. I couldn't breathe. My hands were clamped over my mouth, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. The boy, I, was being dragged towards it. No screaming now, no thrashing, just weak, broken sobs. The camera tilted, and I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of the screen. A hand, a gloved hand. It reached into the dirt, grabbed something. Then the camera panned down, and I saw what was in the grave. A body, small, fragile, face down in the dirt, the exact same size as me, the exact same pajamas. And that's when the video cut to black. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at the screen. My mind was blank. My body was numb, because I had no memory of that. None. My parents told me I was kidnapped, that I was missing for a few hours before I was found. But they never told me about this. They never told me that I was almost buried alive. And they sure as hell never told me that someone else, another child, was buried in my place. My phone vibrated again. Another email. No subject, no sender, just 2 words. Remember now? I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I just sat there, staring at my phone, the words on the screen blurring in my vision. Remember now. Number I didn't remember. I didn't remember anything after waking up in the hospital as a kid, confused, crying, surrounded by doctors and my parents. I didn't remember how I got there, or why my mom's face was so pale, or why my dad kept squeezing my hand like he was afraid I would disappear. They told me I had been kidnapped, that I was lucky, that some bad man took me, but I was found before anything worse could happen. But they lied, because if that video was real, then there was someone else, another child, another me, and he wasn't found. I forced myself to breathe, gripping the edge of my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. My thoughts raced, trying to make sense of it. Who the hell was that kid? Why was he wearing my pajamas? Was he some random victim? Some other child who got taken that same night? Or was he meant to replace me? The idea made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. Another email. Same blank sender. Same empty subject line. This time, there was a link. Nothing else. Just a short, blue hyperlink staring back at me. I hesitated. Everything in me screamed, "Don't click it." But at this point, I had already gone too deep. I clicked. The page loaded instantly. It was another forum. Not the playground. This one was different. It looked older, the design outdated, like something from the early 2000s. There were no user accounts, no timestamps, no interaction, just post after post, and they were all about me. Confirmed victim still alive. How did this happen? Mistaken identity? Or last-minute replacement? 2 bodies enter, 1 body leaves. Always. This was a failure. Which one survived? I stopped breathing. This wasn't just some dark web serial killer forum. This was something else. Some kind of organization. And they were discussing me, like I was a glitch, a mistake. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely keep scrolling, but I forced myself to read more. One post stood out, longer than the others. The protocol was not followed. I clicked. The post explained everything. There was a ritual, a process, a set of rules. Every so often, a child is taken. 2 versions of them. One real, one not. A copy, a replacement. The ritual demands that one is eliminated. The real one, the original. Only the replacement is supposed to survive, to take their place, to live their life. But something went wrong that night. The wrong child was taken back. The wrong child was allowed to live. I wasn't supposed to exist. My head spun. This had to be a joke, right? Some insane role-playing nonsense. Except, I saw the body in that grave. I saw his body. Same height, same pajamas, same face. I felt bile rise in my throat. I pushed away from my desk, my entire body trembling, the room spinning around me. None of this made sense. It couldn't make sense. But if it wasn't real, then why was my entire life flashing before my eyes like a lie unraveling? My phone buzzed one last time. Another email. You're not supposed to be here. This time, there was an attachment. A photo. My hand shook as I tapped on it, and then my whole world stopped. It was a picture of me, not a recent one, not from my apartment, not from any time I could remember. I was a child again, standing outside a house I didn't recognize, holding someone's hand, a man's hand. His face was cropped out, but his fingers were digging into my wrist so hard, my skin looked bruised. And then I saw the date in the corner of the image, July 18th, 2009, the night I was taken, the last night the real me was ever seen alive. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the screen. The The picture burned into my mind. My small hand in a stranger's grip. My face, terrified, confused, frozen in time. July 18th, 2009. The night I was taken. The night I was switched. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I closed the email, my body running on autopilot. None of this was real. It couldn't be. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more everything started unraveling. Memories, things I had never questioned before, suddenly felt wrong. I'd always felt like there were pieces missing from my childhood. Small things, a strange sense of déjà vu in places I swore I had never been. Family members saying, "You've changed," when I was still just a kid. And nightmares, not like normal childhood nightmares. Nightmares of being buried, of cold hands wrapping around my throat, of dirt filling my mouth, my lungs, crushing me. I thought they were just fragments of a trauma I couldn't remember. But what if they weren't? What if they were memories? Memories that didn't belong to me. I stood up so fast, my chair tipped over. My entire body felt like it was buzzing, like I was going to shake apart. I had to know. I had to prove that none of this was real. I grabbed my car keys and bolted out the door. I didn't remember the exact location, but I knew the general area. The woods. The ones I was supposedly found in. The ones from the video. It was about an hour outside of town, near an old, abandoned hiking trail no one used anymore. My parents never wanted to talk about it. Whenever I asked, they would just say, "You were found safe. That's all that matters." But they were lying. And now, I needed the truth. The roads were empty as I drove, my mind racing faster than the car. The sky outside was dark, cloudy, too quiet. Every streetlight I passed flickered like a warning, like something was telling me to turn back. But I didn't. I kept driving until I reached the woods, until I found the exact spot. The trees stretched out in front of me, like black skeletons. The air was thick, humid, suffocating, but I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped onto the trail, and started walking. The further I went, the stronger the feeling of wrongness became. My stomach twisted, my skin prickled, my pulse pounded in my ears. Then I saw it, the clearing, and the hole in the ground. Number not a hole, a grave, a shallow dent in the earth, still visible after all these years, like someone had been buried here, and then dug back up. I felt like I was going to be sick. The air around me was heavy, like the whole forest was holding its breath. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw it. Something sticking out of the dirt. A piece of fabric, faded, striped, the remains of pajamas. I collapsed to my knees, my fingers trembling as I reached out, pulling the fabric free. It was small, torn, stiff with age, but I recognized it instantly because I had worn the exact same ones. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The flashlight flickered. I felt something shift in the air, like a whisper just out of earshot, and then a voice behind me. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, my heart slamming against my ribs. The trees stretched into the darkness, their twisted branches reaching like hands. Nobody was there, but I could feel someone, watching, waiting. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short gasps. My body was screaming at me to run, but then my flashlight flickered again, and for a split second, I saw something, a shape, a figure, standing between the trees, small, frail, dressed in striped pajamas, and I swear to God, he had my face. The light died. Everything went black, and the last thing I heard before I ran, before I tore through the trees, tripping, falling, my lungs burning, was the sound of dirt shifting, like something climbing out of a grave. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember how long I drove, or how many red lights I ran, or how I didn't crash. All I know is that by the time I stumbled into my apartment, my hands were covered in dirt, and my mind felt like it was about to shatter. I locked the door, bolted it, pushed furniture in front of it. But I know it won't matter, because I understand now. I wasn't supposed to make it out of those woods. The wrong one survived. And now, he's coming back. I paid a dark web hacker to find out who's been following me. The answer was your future self. Look, I don't really believe in paranormal shit. I don't go ghost hunting. I don't fall for conspiracy theories. And I definitely don't mess with the dark web. But when something really messed up happens to you, something you can't explain, you start questioning everything. I wish I could say this is one of those stories that ends with a rational explanation, like I was just sleep deprived, or it was all some elaborate prank. But I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and I know that no matter what, I'm never getting my old life back. It started 6 months ago. I live in Chicago, in one of those new high-rise apartments downtown. Nothing crazy, just a one-bedroom on the 15th floor with big windows overlooking the river. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, which basically means I spend a lot of time alone in my apartment, staring at my computer, barely remembering what sunlight looks like. It was a normal night, or at least it should have been. I was up late working, like 2 a.m. late, half watching some YouTube documentary about unsolved murders while finishing a client's logo. You know when you get that weird feeling, like your body knows something's wrong before your brain catches up? That happened. I didn't see anything at first, but I felt it. I turned my head slightly and caught my reflection in the black computer screen. And for a second, just a second, I thought I saw movement behind me, near my window. Now, I live 15 stories up. The only thing outside my window is air, but I still turned around, my heart hammering in my chest. There was nothing there. I exhaled, laughing at myself. I need to get more sleep, I muttered, shaking my head. But then, right as I turned back to my screen, I saw it. A shadow. A faint, human-shaped shadow, moving just outside the glass. I froze. Every muscle in my body tensed, my breath stuck in my throat. It wasn't my shadow. My blinds were half closed, and the only light in the room was coming from my monitor. But something, was outside my window, 15 stories up. I whipped around so fast my chair nearly tipped over. Nothing, just my own reflection staring back at me, wide-eyed and pale. I sat there for a long time, barely breathing, my ears straining for any sound. Wind? Maybe a bird? A drone? Something? Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just a trick of the light. Maybe a reflection from another building. Maybe my brain playing games with me. Maybe I was just exhausted. I shut my laptop, got ready for bed, and tried to forget about it. I should have left the city right then and there, because that was just the beginning. I don't remember falling asleep that night, but I remember waking up, not to my alarm, not to sunlight streaming through my window. I woke up because of a notification on my phone. At first, I thought it was just an email or some spam message. My phone buzzes all the time. But when I grabbed it off the nightstand and squinted at the screen, my stomach dropped. One new DM request, Instagram. That wouldn't have been weird, except the account had no profile picture, no posts, no followers. just a username that looked like a random mix of letters and numbers. XV74K19A. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. My brain was still groggy, but something about it made my skin crawl. I hesitated, then tapped on the message. And that's when I stopped breathing. The message was a photo of me, lying in bed, from the foot of my bed. The angle was impossible. I live alone. I had locked my door before going to sleep. My windows don't open more than a few inches. There was no way someone could have taken that photo. I stared at it, heart hammering against my ribs, my breath coming in short, shaky gasps. The room in the picture looked exactly how it did right now. Sheets tangled around my legs, my phone on the pillow beside me. I whipped my head around, scanning the room. Nothing, just me. But my body was screaming at me that something was wrong. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped my phone. I forced myself to look back at the screen. Another message. You looked peaceful. My stomach flipped. I scrambled out of bed so fast my knee slammed into the nightstand, sending my lamp crashing to the floor. I barely felt the pain. My brain was screaming, "Run!" but my legs felt like they were made of cement. I checked my apartment, bathroom, closet, under the bed. Nothing. My front door was still locked, deadbolt in place. No signs of a break-in. And yet, that photo. Someone had been inside my apartment while I slept. I called the cops. I don't even remember dialing. I just remember pacing my living room, my breath coming in panicked gasps, waiting for the dispatcher to pick up. When they did, I barely managed to get the words out. There's someone in my apartment. Or was. They sent me a picture of me sleeping. The dispatcher was calm. Too calm. Like they didn't understand what I was saying. "Sir, are you currently in danger?" "Yes." "No, I don't know. I woke up and there was a photo of me sleeping, and I don't know how they got in." "Sir, is your door locked?" "Yes." "Any signs of forced entry?" I looked around, stomach twisting. Number. The door was locked. No broken windows. No signs that anyone had been here. "No." A pause. "Sir, have you been drinking?" I nearly threw my phone across the room. "What?" "No. I'm telling you. Someone was in here. They took a picture of me. We can send an officer for a welfare check. But if there's no immediate danger, it may take some time." They weren't taking me seriously. I sat down on the couch, pressing my palm into my forehead. My skin was cold and clammy. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples. I looked back at the message thread. The photo was gone. I blinked, opened and closed the app. Nothing. The message was still there. "You looked peaceful," but the image had disappeared. I checked my camera roll. Not there. I wasn't crazy. I saw it. I knew I saw it. But there was no proof, no evidence, and the cops clearly weren't going to help. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, by the time the sun came up, I'd convinced myself of two things. I wasn't imagining this. I had to figure out who the hell was messing with me. I called my building security office the second they opened. "Hey, this is going to sound weird, but I think someone might have broken into my apartment last night." The guy on the other end sounded bored. "Which unit?" 1507. "Hang on." I heard keys clacking on a keyboard, then silence. Then, "Yeah, so, no one came in or out of your unit after 8 p.m., just you." I gripped the phone tighter. "Are you sure?" "Positive. We've got cameras in the hallways and by the elevators. Only people who entered your floor last night were residents." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. Thanks. I hung up, staring at my reflection in the black TV screen. Dark circles under my eyes. Face pale. So either the cameras were wrong, or whoever took that picture never used the door. The second message. I spent the rest of the day jumpy as hell. I couldn't focus, couldn't eat. Every noise made my heart spike. By the time night rolled around, I was wired but exhausted. I needed sleep, but the idea of closing my eyes, of being unconscious and vulnerable, made my skin crawl. I double-checked every lock, pushed a chair under the doorknob, kept a kitchen knife under my pillow. Eventually, exhaustion won. I don't know how long I was asleep before my phone buzzed. Eyes half open, I reached for it, expecting an email or a random notification, but then I saw it. One new DM request, Instagram. My stomach twisted. It was the same account. XV74K19A. My fingers trembled as I tapped the message. There was another photo. It was me again, but this time I wasn't sleeping. This time I was lying in my bed, staring directly at the camera, eyes wide open. The timestamp said it was taken 7 minutes ago. I couldn't breathe. My hands went numb, my ears ringing. Another message popped up. You can see me now. And then, a knock at my window. The knock wasn't loud. It wasn't a bang, or a fist pounding against the glass. It was soft, deliberate, like fingertips tapping, just enough to let me know they were there. 15 stories up. My body locked up. My brain refused to process it. Like if I didn't move, if I didn't look, then maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be real. Another knock. Tap, tap, tap. I couldn't breathe. My phone was still in my hand, the screen dimming, as the last message stared back at me. You can see me now. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering so violently I could hear it in my ears. Slowly, so slowly, I turned my head toward the window, and there was someone staring back at me. Number, not someone. Something. Its face was pressed against the glass, pale and stretched too tight over its skull, like a human face that had been pulled thin and left to dry in the sun. Its eyes were wide open, pupils dilated so huge they almost swallowed the irises. Its lips were cracked, parted slightly, revealing teeth that were too straight, too perfect, too deliberate. And the worst part? It looked exactly like me. Not just a little bit. Not a doppelganger. Not a creepy resemblance. It was me. My face, my jawline, the slight scar under my left eye from when I fell off my bike as a kid. But wrong. Its skin was smooth, too smooth, like it had never been touched by time. Its eyes had no warmth, no flicker of life, just a hollow, vacant hunger. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. It lifted a hand, my hand, and tapped the glass again. Tap, tap, tap. Then it smiled. Not a normal smile. Not a human smile. The corners of its mouth stretched too far, lips splitting like the skin was barely holding itself together. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember grabbing the knife from under my pillow. But suddenly, I was on my feet, clutching the handle so hard my knuckles went white. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. It didn't move. It just stared, its head tilting slightly, as if it was curious. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran, the hallway. I yanked my door open and bolted into the hallway. My mind was screaming at me that this wasn't real, that I was still dreaming, that any second now I'd wake up in my bed, heart pounding but safe. But I knew better. This was real. I sprinted down the empty hallway, past silent apartment doors, my bare feet slamming against the cold floor. I didn't stop until I reached the elevator. My fingers stabbed at the button. Over and over and over, Nothing. The doors stayed shut. The light didn't turn on. Dead. I spun around, gasping for air. The stairwell. I had to get to the stairwell. I took one step, and then I heard footsteps coming from my apartment. Slow, measured. I turned my head just in time to see my door swing open. The thing stepped out into the hallway, still wearing my face, but now it was smiling wider. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. It took a step toward me, its bare feet silent against the floor. My stomach twisted. It wasn't blinking, not once. I backed up, my fingers fumbling for the stairwell door. My hand found the handle, twisted, pushed, locked. What? I yanked again, locked. I turned back just as the thing started moving faster. Not running, not quite, but its arms swung too fluidly, its head tilting from side to side, like it was adjusting, like it was still learning how to move in my body. The only sound was my ragged breathing and the faint hum of the hallway lights. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. I did the only thing I could. I ran back into my apartment. The call. I slammed the door shut and locked it. 1 second, 2 seconds. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the wood, barely breathing. The hallway was silent. No footsteps. No knocking. My phone buzzed. I flinched so hard I almost dropped it. My fingers were shaking as I lifted it to my ear. Unknown caller. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. Hello? A pause. Then a voice. My voice. You shouldn't have run. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the floor with a dull thud. The screen didn't crack. The call was still connected. A slow, wet chuckle came through the speaker. I backed away, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of any of this. This wasn't possible. None of this was possible. I needed help. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. The dark web. Next step. I had always avoided that side of the internet. Everyone has heard the stories. The hitmen for hire, the human trafficking rings, the nightmare fuel lurking just a few clicks away. But if there was anyone who could figure out who the hell was stalking me, it was someone on the dark web. I grabbed my laptop, fingers still shaking, downloaded Tor, set up a VPN. I didn't even hesitate before typing into the search bar, hacker for hire, dark web. 100 results popped up. Most were scams. Some were obvious traps set up by law enforcement, but one caught my eye. A simple website, black background, one sentence in white text. If you need answers, I can find them, but don't ask unless you're ready for the truth. At the bottom of the page was a single text box. No email, no price list. Just, what do you need to know? I took a deep breath. Then I typed, someone is following me. They look exactly like me. I need to know who they are. I hit send. Less than a minute later, a response popped up. I'll look. This will take 24 hours. Then, right before the chat window disappeared. But I can already tell you this. You're not being followed. You're being replaced. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't even remember lying down. But when I opened my eyes, it was morning. The sun was bleeding through my curtains, cutting my room into jagged strips of light and shadow. My body felt like it had been drained of everything, energy, warmth, thought. Like my skin was just a shell that had been left behind. For a second, I forgot what had happened, and then I saw my phone, still on the floor, screen still lit, the last message still visible. You're not being followed. You're being replaced. I sat up so fast, my vision blacked out for a second. My muscles ached like I had run a marathon. My mouth was dry, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers and checked my emails. New message from unknown. Subject: your answer. I hesitated. Then I tapped it open. Inside was a single sentence: check your apartment cameras. A cold weight settled in my chest. I didn't have cameras inside my apartment, just a ring cam at my front door. But my landlord did. The footage. My hands were shaking as I pulled up the login for the building's security system. Every tenant got access to their own floor's hallway cams, but there was a hidden maintenance feed, one that monitored the interiors of some units. For safety reasons, apparently. I found the feed for my apartment, clicked on the timestamp for last night, 2:43 a.m. The screen flickered, then loaded. My bedroom. I saw myself lying in bed, one arm draped over my face, breathing slow and steady. The glow of my laptop was the only source of light. I skipped forward. 3:12 a.m. Nothing. Still sleeping. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. I had no idea what I was expecting to see. A shadow? A figure in the corner? Some glitch in the footage that proved I had lost my mind? I clicked forward again. 3:27 a.m. The screen stuttered, just for a fraction of a second, and then there were two of me. I couldn't breathe. The second me was standing at the foot of the bed, still, watching. The real me. I wasn't moving. I was still asleep, completely unaware. The second me tilted its head, slowly, slowly, like a curious animal. Its face was cast in shadow, but I could see the shine of its eyes. Then, in one single, unnatural motion, it leaned forward, bending at the waist, like a puppet with cut strings, until its face was inches from mine. Its lips moved. I turned the volume all the way up, straining to hear. And then, in my own voice, it whispered something that made my stomach turn to ice. Not yet. Then it straightened up, took a step back, and vanished. Not walked, not turned away. Vanished, like it had never been there at all. What the hacker found. I slammed my laptop shut. I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears, every part of me screaming, "This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real." But I knew it was. I had proof. Video proof. Before I could even process what I had just seen, my phone buzzed again. New email. From unknown. I opened it. "I found what you're looking for. We need to talk. Now." There was a link. A video call link. I didn't hesitate. I clicked. The screen was black at first. Then a grainy webcam feed flickered on. A man in a hooded sweatshirt, his face blurred like a deep fake. His voice came through, distorted and mechanical. "You shouldn't have contacted me." I swallowed hard. My throat was so dry it hurt. "Who? What is happening to me?" A pause. Then, "It's not just happening to you." Static crackled through the speakers. My reflection stared back at me in the darkened screen. "What you saw last night, that wasn't a person. It wasn't an intruder. It wasn't even real. Not in the way you understand." My fingers clenched into fists. "Then what was it?" The hacker hesitated. I could hear his breathing through the distortion. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "It was you." My breath hitched. No, that's not possible. Not you now, but you. Later." I shook my head violently. My mind felt like it was splitting apart. "What does that even mean?" The hacker exhaled, like he was debating whether or not to tell me. Then, in a slow, deliberate voice, he said, "You're seeing something you weren't meant to see. A version of yourself that shouldn't exist yet. A version that's waiting, preparing. To take your place. I felt like I was going to be sick. Take my place? The hacker nodded. You ever heard of a phenomenon called the future self-loop? I didn't respond. He continued. It happens when someone breaks the pattern, when something in the timeline shifts and reality tries to correct itself. Most people never notice. It's subtle, just a feeling of déjà vu, or missing time, or weird dreams. But sometimes, he paused, sometimes reality sends something stronger to fix the loop. The room around me felt like it was shrinking. You're lying. My voice barely sounded like my own. The hacker leaned in, even though I couldn't see his face. Tell me, have you been feeling different lately? Like something is off? Like you're not yourself? My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't told anyone. Not about the lost time. The weird moments where I'd be in the middle of doing something, eating, texting, scrolling Instagram, and suddenly it was hours later. No memory of what I'd been doing in between. Not about the little mistakes. My toothbrush on the wrong side of the sink. My phone wallpaper changed. Texts I didn't remember sending. Not about the dreams. The dreams where I was watching myself. The hacker's voice cut through my thoughts. It's already happening. Your future self is already here. And if you don't stop it, the screen glitched. Then, in a voice that wasn't the hacker's, I heard my own voice whisper, "You won't be here much longer." The call ended. My laptop screen went black, and behind my reflection, standing in the doorway, was me, smiling. It was standing in my doorway, still wearing my face, still smiling. The expression was too perfect, too symmetrical. It wasn't natural. It was practiced, like it had been rehearsing how to be me, watching, learning, waiting. I couldn't move. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. I wanted to do anything but sit there, frozen, as it stepped into the room. Bare feet on cold tile. It moved exactly like me. The same slight hesitation in its step. The same way my shoulders tense when I breathe. But there was something wrong with its eyes. They weren't human. Not really. They looked like glass, reflecting too much light, catching the glow from my laptop in a way that made them shimmer like something hollow, like something empty. It tilted its head, perfectly mirroring me. Then, in my voice, it spoke. "It's time." I lunged for the knife on my desk. I don't remember making the decision. My body just reacted, adrenaline flooding my system as I grabbed the handle and slashed. Too slow. It caught my wrist mid-swing. Its grip was like steel, cold and unnatural. My skin burned where it touched me, like the bones underneath my flesh were rejecting it. I gasped, trying to yank my arm free. Its fingers dug in tighter. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I was staring into my own face, my own expression of mock concern, my own eyes watching me struggle. It squeezed my wrist harder. I heard the pop of something dislocating. Pain exploded up my arm. My vision blurred. I screamed. The knife slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. My knees buckled. It let go. I stumbled back, clutching my wrist, breath coming in short, desperate gasps. And it just stood there, watching, waiting, like it knew I couldn't win, like it knew this was already over. The shift. I don't know how long we stood there. Me, panting, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my skull. It, perfectly still. Then, slowly, it took a step forward, not lunging, not attacking, just moving, filling the space I was standing in, replacing me. I scrambled backward until I hit the wall. My mind was screaming at me to do something. Fight, run, anything. But my body wouldn't listen. I could only watch as it lifted a hand, my hand, and pressed its palm against my chest. The moment it touched me, my vision fractured. The walls shimmered, the floor twisted beneath me. It felt like being sucked into something deep, dark, and endless, like I was being peeled away from myself. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The other side, and then silence. I was somewhere else, not my apartment, not anywhere, just darkness, and then shapes, voices, flickering like bad reception, cutting in and out. I saw flashes of my own life, memories, fragments, me as a kid, riding my bike down my old street, my mom calling me in for dinner, the time I broke my phone and had to spend 3 months using some old Nokia brick. But they weren't my memories. Not exactly. They were warped, changed, little details that were wrong. My mom's voice, but slightly deeper. My childhood home, but with windows that didn't belong. My hands, too smooth, too new. I was inside the loop, trapped, replaced. The new me. I don't know how long I was there. There's no time in that place. No way to measure minutes or hours or days. Just existence. But eventually, I saw something. A window. Through it, I could see my apartment. My life. The new me. It was sitting at my desk, answering texts, scrolling through my social media, being me. And no one knew the difference. Not my friends. Not my family. Not even me. Because that thing is me now. I'm just a shadow, a fragment, a version of myself that no longer exists. But I see everything, and sometimes, just for a second, it sees me too. And it smiles. Final note. If you're reading this, you might not believe me. You might think it's just a story, some horror movie plot I made up to mess with you. But if you've ever woken up and felt off, like something is different, but you can't explain why. If you've ever looked in the mirror and thought, just for a second, that's not me, then maybe, just maybe, it's already happening to you. And trust me, you won't even notice when you're gone. I downloaded a dark web file titled "Do Not Open." When I played it, I heard myself screaming. Alright, I know this sounds like some clickbait horror story, but I swear to God, this actually happened, and I don't know what to do anymore. I don't even know if posting this is a mistake, but at this point, I just need someone to hear me out. So, this all started about 2 weeks ago. I'm 22, in college, and I spend way too much time online. Like, way too much time. You know how it is. You tell yourself you're just gonna check TikTok for 5 minutes, and next thing you know, it's 3 a.m., and you're deep into conspiracy theories about the Denver International Airport. Anyway, one night, I was chilling in my dorm, bored out of my mind, when my roommate Jake brought up the dark web. Now, before you roll your eyes, yeah, I know the dark web isn't all hitmen and haunted YouTube videos. Most of it is just boring forums, weird homemade porn, and sketchy marketplaces. But Jake had this smug look on his face, like he knew something I didn't. You ever heard of black glass? He asked. I shook my head. It's like a private server on the dark web, invitation only. They say it's where people post the real messed up shit. Stuff that gets deleted instantly if it's anywhere else. Government leaks, experiments, cursed videos. All that creepypasta bullshit, but real. I laughed. Yeah, okay. And let me guess, you totally have access. Jake grinned and pulled out his laptop. Within a few minutes, he was typing in some weird-ass command lines and using a private browser I didn't recognize. Then he showed me the login screen, just a black page with the words "Welcome to Black Glass" and 2 empty fields for a username and password. How the hell did you get into this? I asked. Jake just shrugged. Friend of a friend. You want to see? I won't lie. At that point, I was curious. So, I watched as he navigated through different pages. Some of them were just strange, like a live feed of an empty McDonald's dining area somewhere in Russia, time-stamped for real time, with no context. Others were way more disturbing, like a thread titled, "They are not human, how to identify the ones that walk among us." But the one that caught my eye was a post with a single link. No title, no description, just the words, "Do not open." Jake clicked on it before I could say anything, and a file started downloading instantly. It was a video file, only 10 seconds long, named u.wave. The hell is this? I asked. Jake just smirked. Guess we'll find out. He double-clicked the file. At first there was nothing, just silence. Then a faint crackling noise, like someone had recorded audio over a really bad connection. And then I heard it. A scream. Not just any scream. My scream. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't similar. It wasn't close. It was me, screaming in absolute terror. Jake started laughing. Dude, it's probably AI or something. They just deep-faked your voice. Chill. But I couldn't chill, because I had never, in my entire life, screamed like that. And worse, somewhere, underneath the scream, was another sound, a whisper. But no matter how many times we replayed it, we couldn't make out the words. At this point, my skin was crawling. I told Jake to delete the file, but he just rolled his eyes. Fine, whatever, dude. You're overreacting. He dragged it to the trash, emptied it, and that was that. Or so I thought. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing that scream. My scream. It was like my brain knew it was real, like it had already happened to me somehow. And then, around 3 a.m., my laptop screen turned on by itself. A single message popped up. You shouldn't have deleted it. My stomach dropped. I stared at my laptop screen, my brain scrambling to process what I was looking at. I hadn't touched my computer. Hell, I hadn't even moved. And yet, there it was. A single message, typed out in plain white text against a black background. You shouldn't have deleted it. I reached for the trackpad with shaking fingers, but before I could do anything, the message disappeared. The screen went black. I waited. My breath caught in my throat. Then my laptop shut itself off. Not a normal shutdown, either. This was different. No Windows logout sound. No restart screen. Just off. Like someone had yanked the power cable, even though it was fully charged. I sat there in silence for a solid minute, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then my phone buzzed. I grabbed it like a lifeline, checking the notification. It was a text from Jake. Dude, look outside. The hell? I hesitated. My dorm was on the second floor, and my window faced the parking lot. Outside, the streetlights cast long yellowish beams over the pavement. Nothing looked out of place. A couple of cars, the usual trees, a vending machine flickering near the entrance. I was about to text Jake back when I saw it. A shape. At first, I thought it was just a person standing by the vending machine. But then I noticed it wasn't moving, just standing there, completely still, facing my building. And then, very slowly, its head tilted up. I felt my stomach turn to liquid. Even from the second floor, even through the dim light, I could see its face. Or, more accurately, I could see that it didn't have one. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just skin, pale, stretched, and smooth, like a mannequin's. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked, just for a second. But when I opened my eyes, the thing was closer, right under my window. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard, I thought I was going to be sick. It hadn't moved. I hadn't seen it move. But there it was, standing directly beneath my window. And then, it looked up at me. It had no eyes, but I felt it looking at me. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jake. "Don't move." I was frozen. I didn't even breathe. The thing just stood there, staring up at me, with its featureless face. Then, slowly, so slowly, it raised one hand and knocked on my window. I lost it. I scrambled off my bed, practically tripping over my desk chair in the process, and bolted for the door. My fingers fumbled with the lock as I threw it open, sprinting down the hallway straight to Jake's room. I banged on his door. "Jake, open the fucking door, dude." A second later, the door swung open, and Jake yanked me inside, slamming it shut behind me. "Dude," he hissed. "What the fuck was that? You saw that thing too?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. Jake looked pale as hell. He just nodded. Yeah, I saw it." We stood there in silence for a minute, just listening. I half expected to hear knocking at his window next, but there was nothing. Just the sound of the wind outside and our own ragged breathing. Finally, Jake spoke. "Man, I think this is because of that file." I swallowed. "The one from Black Glass?" He nodded. "I don't know how, but yeah." I sat down on his bed, running a hand through my hair. "Dude, we need to get rid of this shit. Maybe reset my laptop, or..." Jake cut me off. "Bro, I deleted that file." I froze. Jake swallowed hard. "I checked my laptop after you left. It's still there." A chill ran down my spine. He grabbed his laptop off his desk and turned it on. Sure enough, there it was, the same file, u.wav, sitting right on his desktop like we had never deleted it. Jake hovered the cursor over it, his finger hesitating on the trackpad. "Dude, do we play it again?" I wanted to say no. Every bone in my body was screaming at me to not press play. But the part of me that had to know what was going on, the same part of me that had gone looking into the dark web in the first place, won out. "Play it." Jake double-clicked the file. The sound played instantly. And this time, it wasn't just my scream. It was my voice. But not just any voice. It was me. Right now. And I was begging for my life. "Please, please, please, don't do this. Oh my God." Then a sound. A low, wet gurgle. Like someone choking on their own blood. The file ended. Jake and I sat in stunned silence, the air thick with something wrong. That wasn't a recording from the past. That was me. Right now. And I sounded like I was about to die. My phone buzzed. I looked down, my hands shaking. Another text. Not from Jake. Not from any number I recognized. Just an unknown sender. The message was short. "Soon." Jake and I just sat there, staring at my phone. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us breathed. That text, "soon," felt like a fucking death sentence. I tried to steady my breathing, but my heart was hammering so hard it felt like it was trying to claw its way out of my chest. I looked at Jake. His face was pale as hell, his hands clenched into fists, like he was trying to stop them from shaking. Then, suddenly, knock, knock. We both jumped. The sound was right outside his door. My throat went dry. Jake shot me a look, mouthing, "What the fuck?" I shook my head. "No way. No fucking way." Knock. Knock. Louder this time. Jake grabbed his phone and pulled up the dorm security camera app. He tapped through the menus as fast as his fingers would let him, switching to the camera that faced our hallway. We both leaned in. The hallway was empty. Jake's face tightened. He tapped another camera, the one by the elevators, also empty. But the knocking kept going. Knock, knock, knock. We stared at the screen in disbelief. There was no one outside. Nothing. Just the shitty carpeted hallway of our dorm building, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. And yet, someone, or something, was pounding on the door. Jake slowly stood up. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling for me to stay quiet, then crept toward the door. I wanted to grab him, to tell him not to open it, but my voice wouldn't come out. He reached for the peephole, and the second his eye met the glass, he screamed. Jake stumbled back, tripping over himself and falling hard onto the floor. His breath was coming in sharp, panicked gasps, his face pale as death. I scrambled over to him. What? What did you see? He just shook his head. His hands were shaking so badly, I thought he was having a seizure. I swallowed hard, and before I could stop myself, pressed my own eye to the peephole. At first, I saw nothing, just the same empty hallway. But then, the peephole blinked. I jerked back so hard I hit the wall. That wasn't a peephole. That was an eye. Something was looking through it. Something was standing right on the other side of the door. Jake was already on his feet, grabbing his keys. Fuck this. We need to get out of here. I nodded so fast, I thought my neck was gonna snap. We grabbed our phones, wallets, whatever was in reach, and ran. Jake yanked the door open, and the hallway was empty. I didn't care. We sprinted. Down the hall, past the elevator, straight for the stairwell. I didn't even dare look behind us. Every part of my body was screaming, go, go, go. We didn't stop until we were outside, panting in the cold night air. The campus was quiet. No people, no cars, just an eerie stillness, like the entire world had paused. Jake ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Dude, what the fuck is happening? I shook my head. I don't know, but we need to go somewhere. A public place. Somewhere with cameras, people. Starbucks, Jake blurted. It sounded ridiculous, but at that moment, I would have agreed to anything that wasn't our dorm. We jumped into Jake's car and peeled out of the parking lot. The Starbucks was nearly empty when we got there. Just a bored barista behind the counter and some college girl in the corner, scrolling through her phone. The warm smell of coffee did nothing to settle my nerves. Jake and I grabbed a corner booth, sitting with our backs to the wall so we could see everything. I was still shaking. I kept expecting to see that faceless thing standing outside the window, just staring in. Jake opened his laptop, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. We need to find out what the fuck this file is. I didn't respond. I was too busy staring at something on the screen. The file. It was still there. Jake noticed it too. He swallowed. Dude, should we? Before he could finish, the file opened on its own. I felt my stomach drop. The video player popped up, playing a new recording. And this time, it wasn't just audio. It was video. It showed a room, small, dimly lit, a concrete floor, stained dark, a single metal chair, bolted to the ground, and someone sitting in that chair. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was me. My arms were tied to the armrests with thick, rusted chains. My head hung forward, my hair matted with something dark. Blood? I couldn't tell. The whole video had this distorted, grainy quality, like it had been recorded on a decades-old VHS. Then, in the video, I lifted my head. Jake and I both flinched. The other me slowly looked up, his bloodshot eyes locking onto the camera. His lips moved, barely a whisper. Run! The screen glitched. For half a second, something else appeared. A face. Not my face. Not Jake's. Something else. I barely got a look at it, but what I did see made my skin crawl. Hollow, sunken sockets. A mouth stretched too wide, teeth that were wrong. Then, the video cut to black. We sat there, frozen. Jake slammed the laptop shut, breathing hard. Number nope. I'm fucking done. I was shaking so bad, I could barely hold my phone. My hands felt wrong, like they didn't belong to me. Then my phone buzzed. I knew what I was going to see before I even looked. Another unknown number, another text. This time, it wasn't just one word. Check the window. My stomach dropped. Jake and I both turned, almost in sync, looking at the large Starbucks window beside us. There was someone standing outside. At first, I thought it was just a normal guy, a regular dude waiting for his coffee or scrolling through his phone. But then, he grinned, and I realized he had my face. The man outside the Starbucks window was me, not someone who looked like me, not a twin, not a deepfake, not a hallucination. Mr. Same face, same haircut, same hoodie, but his expression, his fucking expression, was wrong. He was grinning, not a normal smile, not even a creepy one. His mouth stretched too wide, like his skin wasn't meant to move that way. His teeth, God, his teeth, were too white, too straight, like they'd been scrubbed clean with bleach. His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. And then, he waved. Just a casual, friendly wave, like we were old friends running into each other on the street. I stopped breathing. My body refused to move. Every part of me was screaming to run, to do something, but I was frozen. Then Jake saw him too. Jesus fucking Christ, Jake whispered, nearly knocking over his drink as he shoved away from the table. Fake me's smile widened, and then he moved. I don't mean he walked. I mean 1 second he was outside the Starbucks, and the next he was inside. No door, no movement, no transition. Just blink, and he was sitting at the table next to us. I nearly fell out of my seat. Jake swore under his breath, yanking at my sleeve. Dude, we need to... Fake me leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. His head tilted slightly, like he was studying me. His voice was soft, almost amused. Took you long enough. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember grabbing Jake or running for the door. But suddenly, we were outside, shoving through the entrance so fast we almost crashed into some guy walking in. I barely even noticed. We sprinted toward the parking lot. I turned back once, just once. Fake me was standing inside, watching us leave, and he was still smiling. We didn't go back to the dorm. Jake drove. I don't know where we were going. I don't think he did either. We just needed to be somewhere else. I was shaking. My brain felt like it had short-circuited. Jake, that thing, it was me. Jake was gripping the wheel so tight, his knuckles were white. Number. That wasn't you, dude. That was something else. But it looked. I know what it fucking looked like, he snapped. Then he exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Jesus, man. What the hell is happening? I had no answer. We kept driving. Fast food signs blurred past. McDonald's, Taco Bell, a 24-hour gas station. The glowing neon lights felt unreal, like we were stuck in some fever dream. Then my phone buzzed. My stomach dropped. Slowly, with shaking hands, I pulled it out. Another unknown number. Another text. Stop running. Come back. I nearly dropped the phone. Jake's grip tightened on the wheel. We need to ditch our phones. Now. I hesitated. But what if... Dude, they're tracking us. That was all he needed to say. Jake pulled into a gas station parking lot. We both got out, looked at our phones one last time, then tossed them into the dumpster behind the building. No going back now. We got back in the car, sitting in silence for a long moment. Then Jake spoke. We need to find out what the hell this thing wants before it finds us first. I swallowed. And how do we do that? Jake stared at the dashboard. And then, finally, we played the file again. It was a terrible idea. A horrible idea. Every rational part of my brain was screaming, "Don't." But some sick, twisted part of me needed to know. Jake parked behind an abandoned strip mall. The place was dark, empty. The only sound was the occasional hum of a streetlight buzzing overhead. We pulled out his laptop. The file was still there. U.wav. Jake hesitated, then clicked it. The video started. Same room, same chair, same other me strapped to it. But this time, fake me wasn't whispering. This time, he was laughing. Low at first, almost playful. But then it grew. Louder, more distorted, like the speakers couldn't handle the sound. The screen flickered, and I could swear I saw flashes of something else. Images too quick to fully process. A face, a body, blood. Then fake me stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto the camera. "Almost time," he said. And then, a knock on the car window. Jake and I jumped so hard the laptop nearly slid off his lap. I turned my head, and my stomach dropped. It was me, standing right outside the car. Not fake me, not some distant figure lurking in the shadows. Mr. Wright, outside the passenger side window, staring in at myself. Our eyes met, and then he smiled. But this time, it wasn't the too wide grin from before. This time, he looked sad, almost sympathetic. He raised a single finger and pointed behind me. I barely had time to process what that meant before something grabbed me from behind. A hand clamped over my mouth, cold, clammy fingers digging into my skin. I tried to scream, but the sound never made it out. Jake yelled something, but it was already too late. Something pulled me back. The last thing I saw before everything went black was myself, still standing outside the car, still watching, still smiling. I woke up in the dark. My head was pounding. My body felt wrong, like I had been asleep for too long, but hadn't actually rested. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp concrete and something metallic. I tried to move. Couldn't. My wrists and ankles were strapped down. That's when the panic hit. I thrashed, yanking at whatever was holding me, but the restraints didn't budge. My breathing turned ragged, my chest rising and falling too fast. Then, a sound, a footstep. Someone else was in the room. A dim, flickering light buzzed to life above me, and my stomach dropped. The room was exactly like in the video. Cold concrete walls, a single chair, bolted to the ground, and me, strapped into it. Except this wasn't a video. This was real. I yanked at the restraints again, heart slamming against my ribs. "Jake?" My voice came out hoarse, desperate. "Jake, where the fuck are you?" No response. Then another footstep. And then, a voice. "Shh, it's almost time." My whole body seized. The voice was mine. Slowly, I stepped into the light. Not me. Not really. But him. Fake me. Up close, he was worse. His skin was off. Too smooth. Too clean. Like something pretending to be human, but missing the details. His eyes had a glossy sheen. And his mouth. God, his mouth. His lips were cracked and dry. And when he smiled, his teeth looked too perfect. Like a doll's. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't fucking breathe. He knelt in front of me, resting his hands on his knees. "You should have listened," he said softly. "Listen to what?" I choked out. His head tilted, almost curious. "To the file." Something flickered in the corner of the room. A screen. It crackled to life, showing Jake, still in his car, eyes wide, mouth moving like he was screaming, but no sound came through. Then I stepped into frame. Or he did. Fake me leaned into the driver's side window, grinning at Jake. Then he reached inside and grabbed him. The screen cut to black. I thrashed against the restraints. "What did you do?" Fake me just sighed. "You don't get it yet, do you?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. My phone. He held it up so I could see the screen. It was open to my camera app, recording, and in the reflection, I saw him holding the phone. Not me. Him. And I realized there was no reflection of me in the chair. Only him. My blood ran cold. He leaned in close, so close I could smell his breath. It smelled like nothing, like air, like an empty fucking void. "I'm not replacing you," he whispered. I already did. And then he pressed something against my neck. A knife. Cold metal, just barely touching my skin. My breath caught. "It's okay," he said, almost comforting. "You were never supposed to be here anyway." And then he dragged the knife across my throat. Fire. That's the only way I can describe it. White-hot fire erupted in my neck, my skin splitting open, warmth spilling down my chest. My body convulsed. My lungs gasped for air that wouldn't come. And the last thing I saw was myself, watching, smiling, living, while I faded. I woke up in my dorm room. Morning light streamed through the window. My bed was warm. My laptop sat open on my desk, like nothing had ever happened. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I sat up and saw my reflection in the mirror. The person looking back at me was not me. I ran to the mirror, heart pounding. My hands, my face, my eyes, they were all slightly off. My features were too smooth, too perfect, like an AI-generated image of myself. And then my phone buzzed. A new message. From Jake. "Dude, something's wrong. You've been acting weird since last night. Call me." My stomach twisted. I turned back to the mirror. Fake me stared back. And then he smiled.